firefly, or is it one firefly hugging you each, like 1,000 fireflies hugging you one time? Because then it's only 1/10 of.
I'm actually sharing it right now on our channel.
There you go.
And I just realized this whole time the audio wasn't playing, so we're just silent video this whole time.
Oh, that's why I wasn't hearing anything.
Just gonna mention that to you.
Batting 1,000 so far.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm disappointed Wayne couldn't be here.
Yeah. So I think it's the first one without him.
Yep. First one he's missed. Matt, you're the only one who hasn't missed one yet, right?
I have not.
Hey, you're the only one, I think.
I'm not tardy like you guys.
Whatever, dude.
Whatever, man.
I think I've only missed one.
Okay, now that I'm done this, I can mute myself on this because I'm like hearing the same conversation happen again and it's throwing me off.
Oh yeah, I definitely muted it.
Okay, that's on the Facebook.
Solid.
Ready when
Let the views come pouring in.
What up, everybody? Facebook, YouTube.
AEIOU.
The whole squad is out here. We out here. I should probably put a hat on if people are going to be watching us.
That hair's ridiculous.
Yeah, I wore it. I was sweating a lot. Hold on.
Look at that mop.
Should I do YouTube Inception and point my camera at the YouTube stream?
That's how you break the internet. You got to be careful.
That's right.
Got to show off the lid.
We can make it a hat night. Everyone wears a hat.
The Ernie Banks.
Irvin's got his
collection.
fedora. There it
I've got
is.
a hat.
Here it comes.
Oh no.
Boom.
Beautiful.
Hello, ladies.
Dear God.
Doesn't fit with my giant headphones.
I have a couple ridiculous hats I can pull out.
That's a darn shame, Irvin. It sounds like you're not going to have to wear that.
Oh, man.
I'm just gonna move this.
I am devastated. Let me open up the articles.
Oh man, I'm making a mess over here.
Did you guys miss me?
Best hat. Oh.
Oh, get out of here.
Oh no! You can't advertise that. You can't show.
Not
what you
up
work
in
on
here.
the Stream.
Not
somewhere on the internet, you just got flagged.
Oh man. Alright. I'm recording on my end, so whenever you guys want to start.
I'm not recording yet. I don't want to start the episode. I have this beautiful music playing in the background.
What was that? Tenacious D?
That's just a little riffy riff. Similar chords though.
Little
I can't play anything copyrighted.
Little riffy riff. Similar chords though.
Little riff.
They're so out of tune. It's not mine.
That's what they all say.
Little it is. Sam's.
Not
It's
me,
like
it's a guitar.
tiny guitar.
I'm a great guitar player. This is the wrong guitar, man.
It's okay.
Right here, buddy. Right here. Sorry, YouTube.
See, it wasn't me this time. Wasn't me this time.
I didn't say anything.
I
What did
gave
you say?
I gave one of those to Dom at work earlier, and he couldn't stop laughing.
God. Tomorrow's gonna be a mess.
Oh yeah, can't wait to have you back, buddy.
Yeah. Couldn't get away long enough.
At least it's Thursday.
That's That's right. Hey, Slavety Slave,
You.
you want some of these bad boys this week or something?
What's that?
These NFC chips?
Oh, yeah. Only problem is that I'm working at home the rest of the week, so you'd have to come to my house.
Not anymore. You're not.
Oh man.
If you want these chips.
Trying to get them chips, son. I gotta get them chips.
I still use your sticker. I mean, it's still on my router.
Yeah, that's a great use for it.
It's so nice. And eventually, iOS users will be able to use it too with iOS 11.
Yeah.
Hey, perfect way to segue into our podcast. All right.
10 p.m.
iOS 11 right here. Kyle, why didn't you get it?
I didn't know about it until you did it on the podcast, and then I never remembered to ask you how to later. So
Let's do it tomorrow.
done and done.
You guys ready to start?
Ready?
Whenever you are, brother. Whenever
All right.
you are.
Episode
so hold on.
7.
Should we?
coming in
Should we? All
hot.
right, never mind. Let's go.
Oh, wait, what were you doing?
Just gonna say, Matt lead it in. I'll go to break. Kyle come back from break. Urban end it. Something like that.
Yeah, we can do the social media stuff at the beginning of the second half.
Sounds
All right.
good.
I think it's a
Man,
little,
good job.
yeah, it's a little
My
more natural.
favorite thing to do.
I know it is. All right, gentlemen.
All right. Might do
Yes.
something interesting with the intro. Just kind of go off on a rail. Just see where it goes. See where
Do
it
it.
takes me. All right.
Just try and
Let
be.
it flow.
Yeah, that is the most important thing. Is the flow. So
All right.
Let
push
it
the-
flow through you and in you.
Flows through me. This is the last one I'm going to get for 45 minutes. So I have to take advantage of it. Because I can't mute. All right. So, Industry 4.0, Episode 7, beginning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's going on, guys? This is Episode 7 of Industry 4.0, the only tech show where the pants are optional and the tech is mandatory. We have a few interesting...
It's a good thing these cameras are from the shirt up.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a webcast, too, so
Yes.
we're all at home. I'm joined today by one less person than normal. I've got Irvin, Kyle, and Jeff with me. And we got a few interesting topics for you today, just to briefly go over them. Yeah, there's some media companies that are getting shows on Snapchat. You have Facebook creating its own language using the Facebook AI accidentally. And then you also have the European Union, some groups in that group backing end-to-end encryption for all citizens and just trying to stick up for their privacy. So it should be a pretty good first half. Let's just jump straight into the first topic about Snapchat spending $100 million on original shows and ads. What do you guys think about this? Snapchat kind of adding something else to their discovery panel to keep people in the app. Do you think it's going to work?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been up in stock ever since this happened, only by a little bit, but that could change in a couple of days.
Up is a relative term because as soon as there's stock launched fairly recently, it's been fairly down. It started at a high of like $22. Initial public offering was at like 17. Now it's back right where it was 17. So this is right off the heel of that big IPO. They're supposed to be this huge next media company, and it looks like they're starting to gain traction with some of the bigger media companies like Time Warner, that they're putting a lot of money, $100 million in this case, in the next, it looks like 2 years. They're going to invest in Snapchat original content. So this is Snapchat only shows, and ads as well. And it looks
And
like
it's big. It's Time Warner Cable too,
Yeah,
so you have
it's
a big company backing this.
yeah, and Snapchat's going to take 50% of that ad revenue, any money that they're making of these shows. So right off the top, half of it goes to Snapchat.
So from a content standpoint, I'm curious to see what they're expecting to put out, whether this, I mean, when I first was reading this article, I was thinking, like, oh, when I go through my Facebook feed or something like that, and I see these short comedy videos, that's usually the kind of thing that's, in this 3 to 5 minute span they're discussing that catches my interest. At least, I like to have a quick laugh, and I don't have time to watch a full episode of something during the day. With Time Warner, I'm curious to see what these 3 to 5 minute episodes are going to look like. If they're going to try and make it maybe something like an actual series where you tune in. As of right now, I think this can't hurt too much because personally, I'm not interested in the Discover space in Snapchat. Any Jenner and Kardashian news is way too much for me. So when you see Kylie and whatever in there every day, I instantly close the app. So I'm hoping that they can do something nice with this. And like I was saying, I hope that they do these kind of shorts, maybe pick up some internet talent that are kind of trending and hopefully come out with some entertaining stuff.
Yeah, they can probably pick up one of those Vine stars that don't have Vine to have their as their outlet anymore.
Isn't that dead?
Yeah, that's
gone
away.
They killed it.
They kept the camera, but that's it. Like the actual user base and like actively updating your account is done.
That was the first app that I had someone younger than me tell me about, and I felt really old because I was like, what is Vine?
I loved Vine.
The one that I still couldn't get behind is Periscope, that new one.
I never jumped on that one.
Yeah, there's a couple people I know that use it, but I never was able to get onto it. But
I knew a few people. That's not super new? It just picked up speed recently, right? Because I thought I'd heard of that a while back.
Yeah, it's been around a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. But I think Snapchat's targeting. I think this is kind of just a stretch to collect more ad revenue to just give them a little bit more of an income. I don't know how well this is going to work.
Yeah, you mean any income, right? Because they're not making any money.
They're hemorrhaging money really badly.
It'll be cool if they add some kind of like sharing utility to the episodes where maybe you can take like a 5-second clip and send it to someone. Because, we have these group chats in Snapchat from, our group of friends. It'd be cool if there was, something entertaining and funny where we could just send a 5-second clip, in reference to a conversation we're having where maybe it fits the discussion.
Right.
Like and also I don't think this talked about where it's gonna fit in. Like where is it? It's gonna be in the Discover tab, or do you have to specifically
That's what I'm thinking.
Follow like Time Warner to get these shows? Like I don't think that's gonna work out so well.
No, that wouldn't be preferred. It would be interesting to see if this winds up bringing a cost to Snapchat too, as opposed to it being a free utility. If they bring in a cable company, I'm curious because I'm not sure how the cable company would really benefit from this unless it's tied to a series that you have to watch through the cable provider at some point.
Right.
Yeah, that was my thought. Was it could just be like side stories to a main television show that's already on, like CW or something like that. So that was my thought. I think their best bet is to start with either a spinoff, where like doing backstory on characters that are on TV shows that exist already, or like you said, grab a couple YouTube stars who have tried movies and haven't made it, and have them make something together. So you kind of like bringing back that nostalgia of that app that we don't have anymore.
That kind of makes the most sense to me too, because cable's got to go somewhere. They're trying to do this online streaming that they can do app-based services. So it only makes sense that they'd go kind of into YouTube direction of these
Snapchat
viral
struggling,
stars.
Cable's struggling. They're just going to work together to try to keep each other afloat at this point. But you see, I use Snapchat in bursts of time that are mostly shorter than a minute. Go in, check, see my snaps, and then I put the phone away and I call it a day. And Snapchat's main target audience, they've kind of created this app, in my opinion, that has this almost ADHD kind of approach to it, where like everything happens in really short, quick bursts. And I don't know if this is going to hold people long enough to actually be effective. Like, I don't know how well this deal's going to work out that way. Like, I don't know if they're going to see a whole lot of return on investment in that way. So to your point, I don't know if it's going to, be of interest to the people who are used to this short ADHD kind of attention span with Snapchat. But I think that's their whole goal, right? Is to change that. So that's one approach to it. I'm in agreement with you. I don't know if it's gonna work.
Yeah, they want to keep people on the app as long as possible, right? Because that way they're gonna view more ads, and then they're gonna make more money, get that 50% cut, more of that 50% cut. So that's their goal. So
Right.
if they put a couple ads in between these 3 to 5 minute short clips, I wouldn't even call them clips at that point. 3 to 5 minutes is like a mini document, mini episode. Yeah. If they get people to actually watch the full video, not just look 30 seconds in and then swipe down and dismiss it, I think that's gonna be really interesting how they manage to do that, get their viewership up, viewer minutes, how long people are staying within the app, and get those numbers up.
I think I've spent a grand total of 2 minutes in the Discover tab. Like,
Oh.
I know some people who watch them, but like I said, and like you're saying, I don't know if this is going to hold people in there in the same way. It works on a platform like Facebook, where you have people who are scrolling through their feed and reading statuses and stuff like that. But in a video-based platform, I don't know. Like, I just have serious doubts that it's actually going to work. But like you said, it could go. It really depends. It could go either way. I'm not sure. They might lose people, but they might. I don't know.
Go ahead.
All you.
In the Discovers tab, the only thing I've ever looked at is the IGN tab, personally.
Yeah.
That, and on occasion, like if ESPN's looks interesting when I scroll by it, I'll go to that. But I think, they have potential for sure with these small clips. I mean, I can't believe that I'm going to admit this, but I downloaded some dumb app that I saw advertised on Instagram all the time. It was a free app. It was called Hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like these text conversations back and forth between people. So there's no video, no audio, nothing. It's just text conversations between people. And like the conversations were all very tense, very situations where people are like being real vague and you're not sure what's going on and people are getting frustrated. And then it would be like, and then all of a sudden halfway through the conversation or like a third of the way through the conversation, you're like, it's like, oh, you need to wait 20 minutes to do it again. I was like, no, come on. Just give me the answer. Like, I just want to see the end of it.
It's like a soap opera text message.
Exactly. So I was like, if comedy is obviously the quick one. You can do plenty of things in comedy in 3 to 5 minutes, but I think if you do just drama-filled situations, going back, that app, I deleted it because I literally was ignoring work to do it. So, like it wasn't even that good. Half the stories I was like, I need to click through this so I can get a good one again. But like that was good enough for me. I was like, the good ones were so intense. I feel like you could do something with it. So they have the potential. It's just they have to go about it the right way, just like most things. So
Right, and I think comedy's going to work there. But the article mentions that they could do something similar to like a Game of Thrones style like clip set, and like you were saying, the drama might not necessarily work too well there. And I don't know if that approach is going to work out. It'll be interesting to see who they pull in to do these ads, like not just how Time Warner and Snapchat are approaching it, but like if they can do it in a different way that either Facebook or YouTube or something doesn't already do.
So when you mentioned Game of Thrones, I think what you're referencing in the article is they're suggesting that they reach out, and pull in HBO to get actual Game of Thrones clips or previews or character bios, whatever. I'm curious to see whether or not they're going to take that route or maybe try and create the content themselves.
Right, yeah.
And kind of while I have the floor for a second, I was going to comment earlier. Do you think that the actual utility of Snapchat is going to kind of expand from those 10-second snaps you can send to maybe something longer? Or do you think that's kind of defeat the purpose?
It kind of has to if they're going to try to become more profitable. But we brought this up in a couple other podcasts, and I don't know how profitable the selfie is. I don't know to the extent of how far you can take that. So they do need to innovate really badly, and it's good to see that they're trying. And I'm not sure.
Don't they now let you add videos and photos from your photo stream though?
They do.
Yes, they've started to go in that direction where it's just less about the selfie and more about the environment. But they do need to go longer because Instagram, which is the more popular app, is already longer than that. So.
Well, that's recent as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Facebook and all of them are adding all their stories and going through, and just they couldn't buy them, so they're just gonna recreate them.
Yeah.
So
pretty much.
And they're already beating them. Instagram's already beating Snapchat in the amount of people using it daily.
Yeah, it's because it's all in one app.
Yeah.
People
when I was just in San Francisco, everywhere I looked, there's somebody scrolling through an Instagram feed. I was very, very aware of it. I probably over 100 people during a 20-minute walk.
Yeah. And if you can keep people in one app for more and allow them to do more, then that's where the profit's going to come from. If they can stay in Facebook and then post something to a story real quick, they're going to do it. Like I've seen friends who are using the Facebook story on top of Instagrams as well. So if they're in one app, it's going to be more effective for them.
What would really be interesting to me is if there's some kind of, granted, it would take them outside the app unless they add a browser functionality, but it'd be interesting in Snapchat if there were some kind of hyperlink utility. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how that would pan out, but that's basically what is missing compared to the other ones, if you could think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think their ads in the Discover tab have something like that. I think if you swipe a certain direction or if you tap, it can open up the ad or something. I haven't ever tried it. I've always just dismissed it whenever an ad popped up. But
I know that during the on the Discover tab, a lot of times it'll be like in the middle of it, it'll say, check out for the IGN, for example, they'll be doing like a list of top 10 video game villains, and they'll go through the 10 quick videos. But then after villain 6, they'll say, check out our top 10 heroes, and you can swipe up and it'll take you to the website.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. I did not know that existed.
Yeah, I know Instagram does the same thing on their stories as well. So,
right, and also just to kind of wrap this topic up, what we were saying, they do need to innovate, and I think we're going to see deals like this come through all the time. Just everything, just them trying different things or trying to be exciting in a different way, and it's going to be interesting. I wouldn't necessarily suggest buying any stock, but then again, I'm not a stockbroker, so
it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out with net neutrality as well. If you have these service providers getting involved in media streaming and these mainstream apps.
Yeah, right. I mean, Comcast or AT&T, has DirecTV, and Comcast had a deal with Netflix a little while ago. So, and I don't think we're going to see anything going away with that with the current FCC chairman.
Now, a Snapchat Netflix intertwining would be really interesting.
That would be strange.
You really want to watch videos in vertical view? I hate vertical videos.
So do I. I immediately close out anything on YouTube that is in vertical view, unless I'm watching it on a phone. Oh. But to go into the next topic, we bring up AI all the time on this podcast, and there was the one we were talking about where the AI invented its own form of encryption, but now they're inventing their own form of communication, or at least kind of, if they're left in a room by themselves long enough, they degrade in language to something that's not quite recognizable by humans, but they're still going back and forth with each other. Anybody want to jump off with this Facebook article, or do you want me to go in a little bit more?
No, I'll jump off a little bit. So, I read it, and my first thought was, well, of course, I read the headline first, and I was like, well, now I'm terrified. Just like how I felt when they created their own encryption, like we talked about in a different podcast. My immediate thought was, okay, the future is here. We're going to be taken over by robots, and we're all doomed. It's a nightmare. And then you read it, and you're like, okay, well, it's more of just they continued to communicate and bounce ideas off of each other. But when you read the text, it just it's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense unless maybe, one of you can understand it.
Maybe to us it's a nonsense, right? To us it's gibberish, but they can understand it. That's the scary part, right?
Just let me believe that it's nonsense. I'm already scared enough, Irvin.
The kerning on the letters is slightly different to hide the secret message that they know.
So that's definitely an interesting point. I was thinking more lines, the example they give, they repeat to me over and over again. I was thinking maybe if one's like a 1 and the other's a 0, you could just get like this binary sort of combination of words that means so much more to them.
I thought that
Yeah.
too. They also like balls, apparently.
It
It
does.
says it in the article. YouTube, don't be mad at me. It says
Alice.
it in the article.
Well, no, it's
Bad.
balls have 0 to me. They mean, obviously that means nothing to him, so it's actually the opposite.
They also use the digit 0 in one circumstance as opposed to the word 0 in another. So there's that sort of duplicity there.
Testing the field out there. The article is definitely a little bit alarmist, though. I agree with you, and how they approach. Like they invented their own language, but if, like you said, if you read it, it's just basically the equivalent of the guy that set up those 2 Google Homes to talk to each other, where it was just they just said "I love you" back and forth for like 45 minutes, and then that was it. And they would transition.
That was not
else.
it.
It was like
just
watching,
I'm gonna kill you, and then I love you back and forth.
it was like a middle school relationship. That's how that whole thing played out. Very passionate, and it went out in a huge flame.
The thing that that's only noted for a quick second at the end is the thing that's probably the most like alarming to me, really, when you break it down, is at the end of the article it says researchers also found these bots to be incredibly crafty negotiators. After learning to negotiate, the bots relied on machine learning and advanced strategies in an attempt to improve the outcome of these negotiations. They became quite skilled at it and even began feigning interest in one item in order to sacrifice it at a later stage in the negotiation as a compromise.
Isn't that crazy?
That's the scary part. Like when you really go into in depth, you read the headline, you're like, oh my God. Then you see the conversation, you're like, oh, okay. And you could easily click out of it. Like, stupid machines.
Yeah.
Balls
like
have
this,
0. Who cares?
This article was a roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I felt. And then I read the end and I was like, what is happening? Why are we just like, why was that the footnote? Like, oh my God.
Like the language is like not even that important when you think about that concept.
Yeah, the last part is way more alarming to me than like, they talk to each other in like some weird way. I don't know.
That's manipulation being done by a machine to another machine. Imagine if it's done to a human who's going to just get played.
It's like they know a language. Also, it just happens to be nonsense. But he's also really good at getting what it wants.
Yeah,
he can do whatever.
I mentioned this in episode 1 or something when we talked about AI before. But imagine a telemarketer that's AI that sounds like a human that can just negotiate like no other.
That was ridiculous.
It's like, yeah, I'll sign up with your cell service, sure.
Oh my God, these articles are fun to see them, how they're like writing out like this, and to see the progression of AI, and you're gonna get all these interesting like quirky articles that pop up about them teaching themselves language, but the end part was just ridiculous.
Yeah,
I forget what episode I brought it up in, but I remember talking about the there's one group who was working on a robot with an AI that was refusing to listen if it thought that it was in danger.
Yeah, right. This is when we're talking about self-driving cars, I think.
Yeah. So imagine having an AI that refuses to listen to you and is also awesome at negotiating together.
Oh my God.
Like it convinces you that it's right for ignoring you. Like that's insane to think about.
I'm imagining
you're gonna see this AI show. Yeah, you're gonna see this show up on Judge Judy in a couple of years. It's like one of the lawyers.
I'm imagining that viral video of the little kid is going, Linda, Linda, Linda.
Yeah. Dude, imagine Judge Judy yelling at a robot.
Oh, jeez.
Or Judge Joe Brown just giving it that look over his glasses.
Sir, please sit down.
Yeah, it's fascinating what's possible now with machine learning and how quickly it's progressing, too. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are warning that we must be careful, tread carefully with AI because it could be bad. I know Elon Musk is one of the big proponents of taking things slowly with AI because he knows that it could advance real quickly and get out of hand.
He's not exactly doing anything to slow it down on his part. You were telling me that he just today that he hired like one of the top machine learning developers in the world.
Yeah.
For Tesla. So he's certainly not slowing it down on his side.
Yeah, that's all I want is just let's take our time getting there. Let's not get ahead of ourselves so we're not prepared for what's going to happen next. Like it's awesome to think about all these things, but we have to make sure that we're in control of it at all times before we keep advancing and I know like technology advances at ridiculous levels, but if we're not in control, that's when everyone's going to be scared and robots are going to rule the world.
So you need to have a good ratio of research to development and the fact that development's much more profitable in the short term needs to be taken into consideration. There are serious consequences to ignoring that. So,
and we also have the benefit of literally hundreds of sci-fi movies of every possible scenario that could go wrong. So there's like a lot of material that people can look at to kind of be like, okay, we should avoid this scenario. We don't want an iRobot, or we don't want 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, hey, don't do that right there.
You see that? Don't do that. Don't. Do
and that's what's generated by the human mind, as far as we know.
Mm-hmm.
These robots could have some way more sinister plan.
Or they could all come together and be like, okay, we're way better than you, so we're just going to leave and do something on our own. And then they go off, and then there's like some hyper intelligent machine race in the galaxy. They just go to Mars, and we've accidentally created Transformers.
They don't need oxygen.
I'll take a Transformer. That'd be all right.
Yeah,
just like, one though. Just one. Yeah.
Optimus Prime.
You get two, then they're gonna fight. You don't want
Minimus Prime. That's what I want.
Oh my god.
Nice.
But just to kind of jump into the next topic, just because it'll take up a little bit more time. The article from BBC News about the Euro MPs backing end-to-end encryption for all citizens. This seems to fly in the face of everything that I've seen coming out of Theresa May's mouth in terms of what they want for encryption. And even there's countries like Germany that are taking a little bit more of a political stance. And they've always been kind of lax on privacy just because of their history of what they used to be. So I'm curious to see how this is going to hold up and what's going to happen with the end-to-end encryption for Europe. Because I think we're treading on thin ice here with encryption and the terrorist problems that you're having in Europe and especially the UK. Do anybody want to jump into this with their thoughts? It's a bit of a loaded article. So,
it is. I'm trying to think of where to begin.
Like it's a draft legislation, so it's just to kind of lead off on it. It's they quote WhatsApp's like privacy protections. Then it calls for a ban on backdoors into encrypted messaging apps like WhatsApp and Telegram. Just stuff that kind of keeps people's data private, and it looks like it was written and thought of by a bunch of more technically minded politicians. Right. So they're saying, for example, encryption involves digitally scrambling a communication to protect its contents, then using a digital key, which is basically just what encryption is, and like going into end-to-end encryption is that they don't have access to the key, meaning they can't listen in. It's just kind of upholding the important aspects of encryption and why we need it as a society. Because if we don't have encryption, we don't have secure credit card transactions, we don't have secure database logs, or we don't have secure medical records online. And there seems to be some kind of cognitive disconnect between politicians and this information. Maybe it's money, but I don't know where that is. But this article, I think, does a pretty good job at summarizing both what encryption is and how to stop what's happening in Europe, not at 100% like stopping the terrorism, but kind of kicking in
against cybercrime.
Yeah, some legislature to kind of keep that afloat.
So I don't know if you guys want to get somewhat political or societal with this conversation, but what do you think about the backdoors? This issue that came up with the government and Apple in the past, where they wanted access to the terrorists' iPhone to get access to what communications they were having. Do you think that should be allowed in special circumstances? Is it safer to maybe it's better for more people to not have access to this information as the government, or do you think that in special circumstances it should be warranted? What do you think?
So I think that if you could stay true to the special circumstances, it's warranted, then yes. But you know that it's the second that the access is granted, it's going to be abused. It's going to be used to the fullest extent for anything that they might deem necessary. And unfortunately, that's the realistic view on it. And I think that that's the reason I'm against it. Like in the moment when you first hear about it with the terrorist situation, I was just like, well, yeah, like I would like to know their communications and how they got to where they were, but it also means that you now have the open door to see whatever you want from anybody. So where does it stop? How do we make sure that that's all you're doing and all you're using it for? And that's just, it's because that quote unquote gray area exists, even though I think it's pretty black and white, they're going to abuse it if they have access. I would have to lean towards no.
And it's not just the government trying to use those backdoors. Once you make a backdoor, it leaves it open for hackers to try to find it and get in themselves using that same backdoor.
That was my thought process as well.
And you have to give the government enough credit to keep that backdoor safe, which I don't know about you, but I don't trust the government to be that competent to keeping that safe, keeping that encryption key that lets them into that backdoor safe and not let it leak out by WikiLeaks or some other entity like Anonymous, things like that. They might get a hold of it and then release it to everyone. Now everyone in the world has access to that backdoor.
But because they're probably listening right now, we love you, government.
Not to mention, it's also in the financial interest of companies like Apple and Facebook with WhatsApp to protect people's security, because they've been advocating this for so long, and people buy their phones because it's more secure and they feel safer communicating on those devices and using those apps. So it's going to be something that not only some of these politicians are going to fight for, but also you're going to see a lot of kickback from like the tech community, because like you were saying with backdoors, when you break it down to its core, encryption is pure math, and math either works or it doesn't. And there's no way to both maintain bulletproof security that we have in encryption and also have a backdoor that allows people to come in and read your information whenever you want.
Right.
And we all know the government hasn't exactly been great at keeping these a secret, with the NSA leaks of their tools and with the FBI more recently. So I don't know if I want them doing that. Like, I don't know if I trust them.
Yeah, definitely not great at that.
So would you support this concept of encrypting everyone's data for their sake?
Yeah. The only confliction that I have is it used to be possible, being that in like so many years ago, you could wiretap people's phones and you could go through mail, you could intercept communications that way. But now we're living in an age where the same device that we communicate from, we store our bank information on, we store our most personal details. To some people, a phone is basically an extension of their brain. So
much.
We're in this like interesting place where we don't know how to place a smartphone in the importance of keeping people's information secure. And I'm all for wiretapping because it's proven to be secure and it works. And it doesn't it can't really be abused by third parties because the lines are controlled by the government. But I don't know how I feel about them forcing commercial parties to do this, because my biggest thing is if you take encryption away from people like us, then people who still want it will get it, or they'll make their own.
So this encryption's on the actual peer device, correct?
Mm-hmm.
From what I'm reading in the article. So basically how's that going to be legislated, where you trust these tech companies to create the encryption method, but also the person who's, trying to get this ball rolling can't have access to it? Is that kind of like saying, take this out of our hands, protect our citizens for us?
That would be a federally mandated law, I would think. So
how can they regulate it if they don't have access to it, though?
Well, they would. I'm sure it would be tested, and they would be able to. I'm sure that they have a long list of smartphones they want to get through, so they could probably immediately put that to use, and they would know right away if it works or doesn't work.
Right.
So, and then also on top of that, with that being written in law, they'd be able to subpoena these companies for this information, whether they have it or not, and you'd see them getting hit with huge fines. So it would be in the interest of both parties, if this passes, to write encryption for their phones. And I don't know if it's going to be mandatory more so than just kind of if they support open encryption, it's protected by law. So, because the chat apps like Allo by default don't have this kind of communication where it's encrypted on both ends unless you specifically enable it. So, I don't know if it's going to be mandated, like mandatory, everything has to be communicated or not. But
And lastly, how effective do you think it's going to be? Do you think that it's going to be untouchable? Because I feel like there's a lot of how do I phrase this? There's a lot of internet activity that is eventually filtered through by the government, whether there's encryption on it or not.
Yeah, and there's always going to be problems with the endpoints. So whether you have encryption or not, if you can get access to the physical device or if you can put something in that intercepts the message when it comes out at the other end of the encrypted node, then you're still going to be able to monitor their information. I think it's more so just protecting information in flight to its destination.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
So was this a hot button topic because of a specific instance or just because it's a hot button topic in general?
I think just...
Like, did something happen that caused this conversation to start, or...
People are just freaking out because of all the terrorist attacks in Europe and in Britain. And you're starting to see countries that were really big advocates of privacy, like Germany and stuff, reconsidering their stance because it's putting people's lives in danger. But what I think they need to realize is that if someone wants to encrypt their communication, they're either going to find a program that does it for them or write their own piece of software that does the same thing. I don't think writing a law to take it out of commercial products is going to solve the problem. Because any good person or any bad actor who's trying to organize a crime in his right mind isn't going to use WhatsApp. He's going to use some other form of communication.
I was just reading something similar about how these terrorist organizations in the Middle East and, and their appendages, so to speak, in other countries are communicating through encrypted apps where the messages disappear after they're viewed, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Snapchat.
Encrypted snaps.
Bringing it all full circle.
And there's also the actual service provider or I guess application provider in this circumstance. Is their data on their servers, on their back end, going to be encrypted the same way?
Yeah. So what if it's end-to-end encrypted? It could be stored on the server of the service provider, but that means if it's end-to-end encrypted, that means the private key that encrypts everything is located on the person's device only, and the service provider does not have access to it. So the example that Matt brought up with Allo, there's an option to start an end-to-end encrypted chat, but by default, the default communication is encrypted, but it's through Google servers, and Google is allowed to read anything going through their servers. And the reason that they do that is they want to give Google Assistant data so that they could provide suggestions. If you're talking about a restaurant or you talk about going out to eat, it's going to suggest restaurants for you. If they did end-to-end encryption, they couldn't do that.
So that kind of touches on the 3 points I was going to bring up is how's that going to affect provider metrics? I was also going to mention, is this going to be forced on users or is it going to be an option like Allo, which you're touching on? And lastly, are they going to... How do I phrase this? If the EU in this circumstance is going to force this on companies, I guess it's not exactly related to what you're saying, but how how intense is this going to be enforced? Is it going to be, a certain amount of bits of encryption that's needed?
Right.
And how are companies going to react to this? So do they have any ability to resist or take this to court, something like that? There's going to be additional, work that they're going to have to do to develop this that's mandated now by the government. I'm curious to see how smoothly that's going to go.
Right, and in the article, they specifically mentioned the Conservative Party's pitch during the election campaign that happened in the UK, and they were saying tech firms should provide the authorities access to information as required, but also said they don't want to weaken encryption at the same time, which I think those two things, you can't have them both together. I don't think that's possible.
Right.
So would it be a situation like, okay, well, you can sit next to the authorities, you go in and do it, you show us what the information is, and then you just fix it again? Like, I don't know what they expect. It's either one or the other. I mean, it's not like a quick, like, oh, I lifted up the edge of the notebook and saw the note in the corner. Like, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not too hard to write code that is workable in a situation where you need to provide some kind of access to encrypted data. You could just generate another key for the third party who wants to access that information, and that wouldn't benefit or harm anybody on any side of this. Nobody would even know. It would just be a third party that can decrypt. But it's important to know who's going to have the access to generate those keys, and if they're going to be one-time use, or if it's going to be like a skeleton key type thing where they can always monitor that conversation, or something like that.
The only way I would be okay is if it were one-time use and it were the people like the companies that made it, the people that you already know have access. So like law enforcement can go to Apple and say, hey, we need you to look at this specific person, and this is the exact reason why. Not just like, hey, we think they might be weird, or like, hey, they did something. We need to know how they got there and who they were talking to, what was said. You give us those conversations. So whoever XYZ position at Apple who works with the law enforcement, whatever, maybe they have that specific job, they're the one who goes in. So it's not just law enforcement like, hey, why don't you let me go peek in and see what I can find? No, you told me one specific thing. I can go to that person's conversation, find out exactly what was said, and give you a report on it. But it's a one-time use. That's it. No one else has access to it. I think that's like the only way that it might be remotely acceptable.
And then on top of that, with the San Bernardino shooting with the iPhone, and I know you brought that up at the beginning, there was a lot of developers at Apple who threatened to quit if they were forced to write software like that. So it's even more so decentralized for the company, not only financially, but they're going to lose talent that isn't going to want to do that.
Right.
So, and
interesting battle, but I'm also wondering if we have any listeners out there who maybe have some experience with encryption that might have some feedback for this episode after it's published, obviously. Please provide that in comments or messages to us. And on that note, I think for this episode, we're ready to enter a break if everyone's ready.
I can go for a break.
So coming up after the break, we do have some more news for you, including Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods, some more news about Uber, and some public service announcements for you about some vulnerabilities we've picked up through the week. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in round 2.
Well done.
my own page.
I am ready to go as well, gentlemen.
That's just
Ready
how I
to
like it.
go as well. My man's a husky ass typer.
I have a mechanical keyboard.
That boy husky.
All right, cool. We are live.
I do like that sound also. So
Shout out to all that crazy activity in the channel, in the chat. Got a lot of conversation going on right now.
oh yeah.
All right. I'm ready whenever you are.
Let's get it going.
Everybody ready?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, cool. So, returning from break, Industry 4.0 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Industry 4.0, everybody. Still on the line here is myself, Kyle. You have Jeff, Matt, and Irvin as well. Make sure that if you guys have enjoyed what you've heard so far, you can check us out on every possible form of media you could imagine. You can go to Industry40, all spelled out, .podbean.com for our main page. You can go Google Play and find our podcast by searching Industry 4.0, as well as iTunes and YouTube, both Industry 4.0. And if you go to Twitter, you can find us at Industry40, Facebook.com/Industry40, all spelled out. That's FOUROH when I say spelled out. And if you're unsure if you found us, you can always look for our image. It's Industry with the number 4 and black and green gears. But more important than that, we want to keep bringing you solid content. So we're going to kick this off right into a huge acquisition. Amazon going out and buying Whole Foods for $13.4 billion. Wow.
Delicious.
I was just at Whole Foods today.
No, you were at Amazon today.
That's what I said.
Where you were.
Welcome to Amazon. Here we are.
But obviously, Amazon has put a lot into their possibly doing these markets where you can walk in, and they've done these test stores where you can just pick stuff up and walk out, and they're doing a lot of stuff with the home delivery, and they're possibly doing robots that will come deliver to you and drones that'll deliver food to you and stuff like that. What does this really mean for both supermarkets and Amazon?
It brings them physical stores. They've been trying to get physical stores move on from their online business, and this gets them a start. It's not a big number of stores. I know they only have and they're in the hundreds of stores for Whole Foods around the country, and they're mostly located in upscale parts of cities that are higher income. But this definitely gets them a huge start, and it's probably cheaper just to spend this $13.4 billion than to start from scratch and build those stores out themselves one by one. And it gives them that system that Whole Foods has built for getting fresh produce and fresh products into their stores, and maybe they can tie it into their warehouses, their Amazon Fresh service that they already have. You can get deliveries directly from Whole Foods from Amazon and things like that. They're going to keep the company separate, so they're going to still have the Whole Foods CEO is still going to be part CEO of Whole Foods, so they're not fully merging, but as one entity, but they're going to keep that Whole Foods name and operate as things move along, and we'll see what they do with it. But I'd love to hear what you guys think might happen additional to.
You mentioned that Amazon mostly, like the Whole Foods is mostly targeted towards people with a higher income because it's mostly in higher income areas. Amazon, in a way, is kind of the same thing, because I think I saw an article somewhere that said that Amazon is mostly the Prime holders, the users of Amazon Prime, mostly range between 50 and 90,000 annual salary. Mm-hmm. So to kind of it's almost like a lateral move for them. It's their same demographic, the same people who shop at Amazon, and the same people who go to Whole Foods most times, who are regular Prime subscription holders. So I'm excited going forward if they're going to start using Whole Foods as like a playground for things with Amazon, like the Amazon Fresh service, or having even something as far as maybe their customer service will allow return of Amazon products. Going as far as that, that would be cool. So it's cool to see them finally getting a storefront. It allows them to compete with companies like Walmart, more specifically Walmart actually, to kind of get a foothold in the brick and mortar market and see if they can take on other companies who have made this move also.
So I'm not sure about Amazon Fresh, actually. I've heard of it in the past. I don't know the specifics about it, but when I heard about this merger/acquisition, the company which I've used in the past called Peapod for grocery delivery, it brings a refrigerated truck right to your door with your online grocery order. I know there's other providers like this, but basically it skips you the hassle of going to the store. You can schedule a delivery. You're there during a certain window of time. You get a phone call. You go to the door, and employee of the company brings out your groceries from a truck and basically hands them to you, so you can take them into your refrigerator or pantry, what have you. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if Amazon Fresh works exactly the same way, but regardless, it provides them basically hubs in every major city and a lot of small towns / suburbs where there's already a Whole Foods as a location where they can obtain the food from to deliver in a much quicker fashion.
It basically, I mean, it really just mimics what they did with their warehouses. I mean, most companies go with 2 or 3 huge warehouses across the country. They decided to do smaller ones all around the country instead of like just down south where it might be cheaper land or what have you. They're mimicking the exact same thing. Like you said, it fits into their demographic, but then they copied that idea and just said, hey, it fits in perfectly with what we've done in the past and what we've already mastered and what we're possibly the best at.
Why not? And it makes me wonder if they're going to do something similar with a major clothing retailer, for example. When you look at the Echo Look, or maybe it's just called Amazon Look, I actually forget the exact name. But maybe they're going to do this with a clothing retailer as well, where you shop online and it comes right from a local store.
Yeah.
Right. This is their first jump into the grocery store market, and the first like brick and mortar market. So I wonder, I'm thinking that also. Like, what other moves can they make?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're definitely getting into that wardrobe because they just launched a competitor to those services that lets you pick out clothes online, and they'll send you those, and you can try them on and only keep what you like. Trunk Club is one of them. There's also plenty of them that are tailored toward men and women. They just launched a test trial for that. And the cool thing about that particular one is the more clothes that you keep, the higher discount that you get on the total order. So if you just keep one, you don't get no discount. If you keep 2, you get a 10% discount. You keep 3, it goes up by 10% each one that you keep. So it's kind of interesting model.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because a lot of people buy things on Amazon, right, to try on, especially clothes, because you don't know how it's going to fit on you, and they send it back. So now there's this subscription service that says, hey, I want to get these 5 things shipped to me, and I'll send back things. It's not going to charge me until I say, hey, I want to keep these.
And that's the same thing happening with Amazon Fresh. It's not taking off because people would rather buy their groceries in person. Mm-hmm. So everyone now has an opportunity, or Amazon now has a dent. They can now make a dent in that market. And I think the article mentioned, they said it was an $800 billion annual spending on groceries in the United States.
Yep.
And that revenue is huge if they can make it competitive with companies like. I think it's interesting they brought up Walmart because it's coming from 2 very different points. Because you have Amazon with Whole Foods, and those are both kind of more upscale. Whereas Whole Foods started in rural areas and started at very low prices. So I'm curious as to how that competition is going to expand going forward.
And you're talking about you mentioned a point about people preferring to be in person to buy their groceries.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience with the food delivery services I've used for groceries, there's certain things I will take that route with where I want to be there to get it, such as vegetables and fruits. But when it comes to something like deli meat or cereal, even milk, if it's pretty acceptable for me to just have that delivered, because it's what you're going to get what you're going to get. When you go and pick out a vegetable or fruit, for example, it's what you see is what you get. You pick out which peach you want, which looks, if it's a banana, if it's ripe or, a little bit older. I don't know.
Maybe the fix to that is, instead, if you order, hey, I want a pound of apples. If a pound is 4 apples, they bring like 15 apples with them from ShopRite around the corner and say, hey, pick out which ones you want. We'll measure it out. Here's a pound. Cool. All right, we take the rest back. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, because some people prefer them a little more ripe than others, and some people don't. And you see people standing there for tens of minutes just kind of fumbling around with fruits and vegetables at the grocery store, just finding the ones that they like.
Is there such a thing as trademarking a term while on a podcast? Because I think it's going to be Agora with capital G-O.
Nice.
Thank you.
I
don't know if that's such a thing, but we're doing it.
You're welcome, Jeff Bezos.
Yes. Oh man, we could actually start trademarking stuff. Let's just do that. Just pivot.
Yeah, Agora TM.
And yeah, this move that Amazon made is similar to Walmart's move to acquire the internet retailer Bonobos, and it also apparently agreed to. It paid $3.3 billion for Jet.com and put their executive over the e-commerce business in there. And it seems like Amazon and Walmart are kind of coming at it from the opposite points. Like Amazon's coming from being an online retailer to a kind of brick and mortar, and they're breaking into that, which seems completely opposite of how where their core values were. And you have companies like Walmart, who, I don't know if anybody has been on Walmart's online website to do their shopping there, but it's really well done. And it's really modern and up to date, unlike basically every Walmart I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
Target's not bad either.
The in-person Walmart experience is a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was some really, really competitive Black Friday deals on Walmart.com because they're just trying to get people to use their web platform that they overhauled. And I'm sure that came straight from Jet. But I honestly thought Whole Foods was worth a little bit more than that. It was worth more than $3.4 billion or $13.4 billion.
13.4, yeah.
Because Microsoft bought LinkedIn for $26 billion, and it's weird to me that something that I'm going to and like a brick and mortar company is worth.
There's probably less. a lot more overhead for Whole Foods than there is for LinkedIn, though.
Yeah.
So you got to take that into account.
Yeah,
I do
it costs a
agree
lot
with
more
you,
to run them. So
if there's an $800 billion market though in the United States alone, and you figure Whole Foods is 13.4, that's not a huge percent of that market. So I'd like to think that they have some extravagant plans in mind.
Yeah, Matt, I need a job in order to buy stuff at Whole Foods, so it's like
that's true.
LinkedIn, Whole Foods, come on.
Which one's worth more, right? Yeah.
Right.
It's like supply and demand in a different realm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was just going to go into just people, what the article kind of goes further on to say about people speculating what they might do with it. And they were saying kind of like how Amazon has expanded benefits into Twitch and their Twitch Prime. They might do something similar to Whole Foods, where if you have a Prime membership, you get special discounts at a Whole Foods in order to make it more competitive and keep people in their ecosystem.
That definitely makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to make that $99 a year that you pay for Amazon Prime a whole lot more valuable if they keep it at that price. Because they keep adding stuff to that, and they really have. I mean, they've increased the price over the past couple of years. I think originally it was around $79. Now it's at $99. So, but if they keep adding stuff to getting a Prime membership, it's gonna be if people can afford that $99 a year, it's gonna be a no-brainer for people to get that, because you're gonna get things from Amazon 2 days. You have Amazon video streaming if you use that. You get extras maybe from Whole Foods. You get I don't know what type of incentives you might think that will be available that they could come up with, but
or maybe they'll tier their Prime service, like 99 for Prime, and then if you want Whole Foods discounts, it's 129 for Primer.
More Prime.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
More Prime.
And then they come in with the lower tier.
Optimus Prime.
Yeah. And then they come in with the lower tier. I was going to say Minimus Prime.
Yeah, Minimus.
And it gives you the slightly worse discounts than the other ones.
They actually charge you more for everything.
So,
Yeah.
worth mentioning as well, and eventually affecting overall costs. According to Wikipedia, Whole Foods Market has 91,000 employees. And when you have a company like Amazon buying Whole Foods, you have to wonder how many of those jobs are going to be replaced by machines or automated checkout, for example.
Right.
How's it going to affect the economy? How's it going to affect what's available to people in terms of open jobs? And how's that going to affect Whole Foods and thus Amazon now as a result?
Maybe they could do what you were mentioning, where you take some of those cashiers away, retrain them to be customer service reps, and now they're taking returns and exchanges in a corner of the store like you have at other big box retailers.
Yeah, that's
So
the
maybe you
benefit.
don't eliminate the job altogether,
Right.
but you eliminate one position and create another one.
Yeah, that's the benefit of having a brick and mortar store. You can always pivot someone to a different department in that store when their job is gone. Unlike if an online service or something takes something from somebody else, or like it's hard to move someone from an industry that's like trucking, but it's way easier to get someone to work in a different part of a grocery store doing something.
Maybe they can get people involved in the tech side of it.
They could.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Amazon would be proactive in doing stuff like that. I think, whereas other companies I think would be afraid to do that, I think they would welcome it. I think they would be like, hey, let's get you some training. Let's do a associates in our, whatever you want to call, not an actual associate, but like an equivalent in the way our programming works, the way our tech works, and let's get you doing something without letting you go, because you're still a valuable person. You still worked here for a long time. We value your efforts. Let's just figure out how you can actually help us going forward in our ideals instead of what you were doing before.
I would think it would benefit them in the long run to do something like that. If you take someone who's technologically, skilled, not to be generational here, but people from the millennial generation, the Gen Y generation are more technically inclined when it comes to computers. No offense to anyone who doesn't meet that criteria. But if you find employees like that, maybe they'll be of use to you in kind of bridging that gap between customers and the back end.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to see if Amazon's going to turn Whole Foods into a playground for their new tech and their new innovations, like we were saying with the self-checkout, and just how far they'll actually integrate it. Like if you'll start seeing the Amazon logo around in Whole Foods, or if it's going to stay exclusive. Like I could see just a couple of quick things they could do would be using, like I mentioned a little earlier, implementing Amazon returns into their customer service, or even just putting one of those Amazon lockers in every Whole Foods, so you can pick up your packages from Amazon while you're getting your groceries, because that way they've already got you in a grocery store.
That's the easiest one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the two quick ones, and I think you're going to see those happen. But it'll be cool to see where this goes, and I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on what Amazon does.
It's funny you mention Whole Foods as a sandbox, because $14.3 billion is obviously a lot of money, but total assets of Amazon are over $83 billion. Right. Total equity of over $19 billion, and their net income is, as of 2016, $2.37 billion. So this could very well be a test environment, so to speak, for Amazon.
Mm-hmm. And they're tapping into a market that generates $800 billion. So
yep,
this is only going to add to that. So I don't know. I think it'll be cool to see where they go with this, and it's definitely a great move on Amazon's part. I didn't even know Whole Foods was up for sale to begin with.
Everyone
And
has their price, right?
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have to be for sale. If they offer you
Mhm.
enough money, they're like, yeah, sure.
I have a quick question before we transition off of this real quick. So you said the service they were using before was Amazon Fresh, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where were they sourcing that food from? Where was that coming from?
That was my
Yeah.
question as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head where they were sourcing it. Probably
Because
from,
it's
yeah.
say they were sourcing it from local grocers and having to pay or make deals with them, that's a cost saving measure right there because
Mhm.
now it's already in places that you own. You've already bought the stuff yourself. And again, it's they probably didn't have them nearly what's the word I'm looking for? The stores weren't as well populated. There weren't as many stores in the country or areas in the country they were sourcing from, at least at a cheap rate. Now you have the exact same idea that they had before. They decided, hey, the best way to get stuff into our people's hands is by making the line from point A to point B the shortest possible line. So they did the idea of the smaller warehouses across the country.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're doing here. You're taking what could be one huge centralized area and spreading it all out and making it as quick as possible. I mean, you can have stuff where you're going to have situations where you can order Amazon at noon and it'll be there at 3 o'clock and you can have dinner ready at 5. Like it's Whole Foods, which is supposed to be higher quality stuff as it is. Like, I mean, it perfectly follows what they've already done. And again, like you said, it's a huge market that no one else was ready to tap into. $800 billion a year. That's insane. I mean, they're just, I don't know about where they got their stuff from before, but we know now, and it's way more convenient. It has to.
Everyone's got to eat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were saying that now they can source groceries from Whole Foods providers and through Whole Foods itself, and that's kind of a similar thing to what Walmart did with its shipping when they bought ships and like tankers to actually deliver the goods to the stores. So they're just kind of cutting out paying other third parties to source their goods. So it's one step going forward in getting Amazon that much closer to beating out Walmart as the number one retailer in the country. And I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see what moves Walmart makes to retaliate, or if they do anything, or if they do something to overhaul their online services like Amazon does. But just for the sake of time, moving on to the next topic, we have Travis Kalanick from Uber officially stepping down as CEO with all of this latest, with all the latest stuff in Uber news. It's one more nail in the coffin, I think, for Uber.
No way. He stepped down. Why would he do that?
So if you guys remember last week, we talked about that he was going to take a leave of absence, and now it's official that he's going to resign as
And now
CEO.
it's a really long leave.
Apparently, and I have no idea why, this was pressure from the board for him to actually do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't like his decision. And it's not like their stocks were tanking or anything, or the media was making a mockery of Uber. I have no idea why their board members would want to kick Travis Kalanick out.
It's just a lot of bad news. I mean, we've talked about Uber almost every single episode, and none of it was good news, right? And that hurts the reputation of the company. And
Exactly. It's
the
negative
Getting out
press.
ahead.
right, and most of the time, the people who get hurt are that go are the CEOs during that point when those type of bad press happens. The CEO resigns and moves on.
Right.
And like you said, like they weren't getting killed yet.
Yeah.
Like the next bad thing that happened, if that is the story that got caught up during a slow news cycle, it's not just going to be that one event. They're going to say this is on top of XYZ.
Yeah.
Like even though they didn't talk about those other things, they're going to say this is after this happened and the DUI incident and the sexual scandals and this, that. They're going to talk about it all, and then they're going to get killed. You get out in front of it now, you don't have to deal with that very negative press. You're just dealing with a little bit at a time. So.
Right. There's sexual harassment suits, the claims that the company is sexist in general. If you have the CEO leaving the company, that's almost like a fresh start from the public's point of view. So basically, you take out this figurehead of the company and replace it with something more progressive or more willing to change in the eye of the public. Whether or not that's true, it's going to change public perception and thus, in Uber's eyes, hopefully benefit the company.
And in the next step, to actually the related, another Uber story broke shortly after this news. They're trying to make good with their drivers. So Uber didn't have tipping built into their app. It was this unwritten rule that you sort of could tip, you shouldn't tip. Lyft had tipping built into the app, but now it's official that Uber wants to make amends with their drivers, and they're building tipping in directly to their app. So there's a step forward to improve the relationship between the drivers and Uber to get them more inclined to get back and start driving for Uber rather than Lyft. And they're saying that they're not going to take a cut from that tip. So whatever you tip in the app, the driver's going to get that full amount. They're only going to take a cut from the actual fare, which is awesome on my end, because I want an easy way to tip someone if they're doing a really good job at their driving and they got me there safely. I want to give them a little extra something, and this gives me the ability to do that right within the app. I don't have to go hunt for cash, and if I don't have any, then I was like, oh, sorry, I can't tip you, or it just makes it easy, just like it is with the whole process of getting into an Uber, getting to a place where you want.
It's funny because this just happened to me today with an airport shuttle, because I only had 20s on me, and no offense to the driver, but I was not going to give him $20 for a lift from the airport to the parking lot. But I very much so wanted to tip him, and there was no means to do so. When you get something like Uber, where people who are city dwellers or maybe even suburban, whatever, if you're taking an Uber and you want to tip and you don't have the means to do so with cash, it's very nice to be able to do so via app, knowing that the driver is going to get all of that.
Right, and Lyft having that feature, I tipped way more often, just having it be there. Just if the driver was cool or held a good conversation, or just the quality of the ride was good if he drove carefully, stuff like that. Like, it's good it allows people not only to make sure that the drivers are being better taken care of, but also I view tipping as a way of kind of encouraging better driving habits with the Uber drivers too. So you'll see people who are just more considerate to their people that they're taking for a ride receive generally better tips, or people who do go the extra mile to kind of make sure that they're comfortable during the ride, like phone chargers. Or I was in an Uber and the guy had an iPad like strapped to the back of his chair, and it was like playing offline Netflix movies.
I've seen that before.
Mm-hmm. So like, I tipped that guy, and that was on Lyft.
Hey man, if it makes your drive better, it deserves some kind of kudos.
So I wanted to throw something out there. Feel free to judge away.
I will.
I want your honest opinions. But so is it bad that I used Uber for a long time first, didn't download Lyft, just because I was used to Uber. Ended up downloading it, and I remember being like, oh, well, I didn't tip on Uber, so why would I tip on Lyft? And I didn't tip the first Lyft I took. And I felt like that was so awkward to see the ability to tip and still have to hit the down arrow to 0 that I went back to Uber for that reason. I was like, I want to avoid it altogether. And then my girlfriend said that her dad tips Ubers anyway. And I was like,
that's what I do.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh yeah, why wouldn't you? Like, I'll tip a cabbie.
Right.
When I used Lyft, eventually I would tip on there, but Uber, I was still like, like, why wouldn't I pull a couple bucks out and hand it to the dude who just got out and took my bag out of the back?
So what you're saying is you're really disappointed with this revelation that Uber's having?
No, like it's it'll make me feel less bad that I'm only using one because I can't tip. Now I'm like, well, I can tip on all of them, so I'm going to tip. Does that make me a bad person that I didn't do it until my girlfriend, he didn't even tell me. I found out that my girlfriend's dad did it. And I was
Maybe.
like, I should probably do it then. Maybe. I think so.
I don't think it makes you a bad person.
Not a bad person, per se.
Am I a bad person that I didn't use Lyft because it gave me the option to tip and I didn't want to feel bad for saying no?
That's debatable.
Because I knew I would say no.
That's a whole conversation about ethics.
I know you're not a bad person. So
that's another podcast, that one.
But,
Yeah, this is the industry
Ethics
4.0.
of
This is
Kyle's
ethics.
ride-sharing history.
yeah. That's a sidebar episode to come in the future.
Sure.
Mhm.
Every cab, Uber, or Lyft drive Kyle has ever had documented.
Let me take you back to 2006. When
The Chronicles of Ride Sharing, story by Kyle.
Right.
But I think that going off of what you said, having that option there enables people who don't have cash. Because I usually would try to, if I had cash on me and I wanted to tip the Uber driver, I would give him a couple bucks on the way out or something just for usually going, like if they went the extra mile, like we talked about earlier. But it's good that it gives me the opportunity to do that in Uber as well as Lyft, because now I have the option to take care of people. I saw that shrug too.
I don't know about
Whatever.
you guys.
It was a chill.
Yeah.
honestly, if I'm at a restaurant, if I'm at a bar, if I'm in a cab, whatever, I almost always tip 20% regardless, just because usually employers take it into account that you're going to get tipped, or at least they like to say that you're going to get tipped. And I've bartended in the past. I've served for a brief amount of time in the past, and I know that not everyone tips. In fact, sometimes people don't even pay the full bill. So that gets deducted from the server employee's wage. And just in general, if you're listening and if you deal with someone in the service industry, please tip them. Don't just bail.
Just tip.
And I know
Your
tipping,
lack of word makes it okay.
yes.
Exactly.
And I know that tipping in Europe is actually kind of frowned upon. So like it's tipping is a very American thing. So
Well, in
it's
Europe,
interesting.
there's things like healthcare that people get.
And cheap internet
And they get paid more and stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
they actually get a paycheck.
Yeah, they get like minimum wage. And,
Right.
right. Yeah,
benefits.
It's going off of how my approach for that. It's just interesting that this is even news. Like, oh, they added tipping into their app. Like, why wasn't that a thing from the beginning? You're in America. People tip all the time. Why don't you give them an opportunity to kind of throw a couple extra bucks towards the driver? And Lyft came out the gates with that, and that was there from the beginning. But I'm astounded that it's like even news that.
I just think it was a way to appear more appealing to us, the people who are taking the rides. I mean,
Yeah.
you're so used to getting a cab and then tipping the guy. It's like, hey, well, look, you can use your phone to get a totally other guy to show up, hopefully, and you don't even have to tip him. Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, okay, I'll try that out.
That's
And
probably
then
true. That
now
ties
that
into
there's
what
a-
you were getting at, yeah.
Now that there's a difference,
Well, you assume they're
Or
being
another
taken care of,
choice,
right? When
yeah,
that
you would
happens.
think so, but
But so I guess in 2 years ago you'd say thanks Obama. Now I'm going to say thanks Uber. Both sarcastic.
But Uber as a company is really in damage control mode now, and
Yes.
I'm wondering, with Travis Kalanick out, who's going to take over? What are their steps going to be? Because I think they have that 180 days of change or 80 days of change plan that they're rolling forward with. So I'm curious what's going to come forward, who's going to step up, if they're going to take on some like big name CEO who's run other companies to help with the damage control, or if they're going to go the route of cleaning house and then starting from the ground up.
I would think that they're just going to appoint a new CEO, like you're saying, from a reputable company. But also, I think it's important to mention at least that this isn't all about the patrons of Uber. It's probably about acquiring or maintaining drivers. Adding this tip functionality is probably going to help them stay afloat in the midst of all these changes.
Yeah, they're realizing that, oh, wait, they should care about their drivers because they're not getting any further right now with the self-driving car thing, and they're rolling it back.
I mean, I don't know about I'm sure there are drivers out there who use Uber as their main occupation, but I know plenty of drivers out there who use it as a second job. And now if you have the ability to get tipped and that's being advertised, they have a new CEO, maybe changes are rolling out. I think that's going to maintain or bring in drivers.
The real question is, do they bring back their slogan, "Get your side hustle on"? Now that you can actually make money, like that isn't getting stolen from you, will they bring back the best slogan in radio ad history?
And that makes you wonder if Travis is getting his side hustle on right now.
Ooh.
Oh
man!
But I think.
Do you want to real quick touch on that HP vulnerability?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a security bulletin that I wanted to do and cue the newsroom footage and the sound effects for all that stuff.
Hold on. Let me grab my paper. Here we go.
Beep, 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 beep.
But there was a podcast that I was listening to with like a famous computer scientist and the guy who wrote a bunch of software that everybody uses, Steve Gibson. He wrote the Never 10 software to keep people from getting Windows 10 on their computers, and he wrote SpinRite to like save hard drives. But he was talking about a security vulnerability on his podcast that was on Tuesday, and there was apparently the entire line of HP printers has a security vulnerability that was around and has been out for a good while now, and a patch has been made available around 2 months ago to fix this problem. And like a brief summary of the HP printers is that like a long story short is they're basically running a full distro of Linux with the printer firmware running on top of that. And if someone utilizes this vulnerability, and I won't get into the details of it, they can gain access to your entire network and get into your home network. So I just kind of wanted to bring it to anybody's attention in our podcast as well, who owns an HP printer and is listening to this, to go in and enable the automatic update feature, because they disable that by default, which means nobody's going to download the update unless they explicitly do it. So I'm seeing, Kyle, you got to go into the software.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and your printer probably came with software that installed on your computer when you set it up.
Yes.
So it's going to be in the settings in there.
Cool.
And it's just an auto update checkbox, and you just turn that on.
It is an important PSA. The more you know.
A lot of people have HP printers. They're huge.
A lot of you. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I'm curious how many enterprise companies are the same way and haven't checked. I would hope they turned on auto updating, because that's just a common sense. But a lot of consumers don't necessarily think to open up that software that they install.
See, I think a lot of companies are going to purposely turn that off because it's annoying and they don't know any better. But
yeah, but that's just something I want to get out of the way.
Well, thank you.
There you go, I4O community and Kyle, who's included, I guess. So.
And I'm thinking maybe we could kind of make a segment of that, like anything that's worth mentioning, like any kind of major, easy to break down security flaw to somebody that they can immediately remedy. We should kind of have a small PSA.
For sure.
Perhaps we'll do a little PSA mini-series on our YouTube channel.
We could do that, yeah. Just like quick security video update or something like that. Or
do Facebook Live video too, the whole nine. We'll get it out there.
And just little by little, just getting the word out. So.
But that also goes without saying that people should be updating as often as possible. And I know the stigma for some people is not to, because it can break stuff. But the risk of any kind of security issue, I think, outweighs whatever weird quirk you might get from an update, which will eventually just get patched anyway. But that being said, that's all I had left. I think that's all we got left on the notes. So anybody want to Want to cover any final topics before we close out?
Just check your software updates, your operating system updates, everybody. They're looking to keep you safe. There's new vulnerabilities every day, so just stay up to date. It's important.
Update as much as possible for whatever piece of technology you have: phone, computer, printer, all of it.
Microsoft even has a day for it. It's Patch Tuesday. It's the one day of the week that they release all their security flaws that are outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm extremely familiar. I used to be a system administrator providing those updates to my user community. So Patch Tuesday is like a holiday for me.
Second Tuesday of every month. Check those updates.
That's right.
So,
with that, thank you guys for joining us to this week's podcast. Any of you have anything to plug this week that you want to shout out to the audience to check out more of what you do on the interwebs?
Guys, I've been working hard on some new beats recently. Actually, I'm hoping to release some new stuff to the public within the next week. You can find me on soundcloud.com/freh. That's FREH. Not to be confused with Fresh, which is probably a little too common for me. But with that's pretty much all I got. All I do is make beats and do this podcast. So,
besides making sure that you obviously check out all of Jeff's amazing beats, besides liking and subscribing to our amazing podcast, if you're a super nerd, you can always listen to my other podcast, which we're doing a new episode tomorrow. Should be out by this weekend. It's On Air with Keenan and Kyle. If you search on Podomatic.com, On Air with Keenan and Kyle. We also have a Facebook page where we post episodes every week. You can subscribe on iTunes as well. You'll see a picture of me like this, and then a picture of another guy standing like this.
It's actually on screen on our YouTube stream right now. So
Perfect. There it is. So you guys can go there if you're a super nerd like me or like professional wrestling. We have a new episode coming out. We didn't have a podcast episode last week. I'll probably be able to release it later as a mini-sode. Me and my son Chase, who's also a diehard wrestling fan, did a Facebook live cast instead. You can check that out on the Facebook page if you'd like.
And it was awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for how to find us, so we're officially live on YouTube. So we uploaded episode 6 as our first official video podcast. This will be the next episode being uploaded. And we're going to be also testing live streams. So that'd be either on YouTube or Facebook. We're going to do live streams of our recordings, so you can listen in, tune in live. Typically we try to record on Wednesday of the week and release on Thursday for you guys to download at any podcast app that you might be listening to. So if you want to find us, go ahead and look us up on Podbean. Just go to industry40.podbean.com. You can also find us in iTunes, so you just open up the podcast app right on your Apple device and search for Industry 4.0. And if you want to check out our Facebook page, go to facebook.com/industry40, where we post up-to-date news that's relevant, that's breaking, as well as follow our Twitter page. So our Twitter will have daily news updates. We have multiple updates as soon as they break. We'll post them there live. So if you want to keep up with all the latest, greatest tech news that's happening every single day, follow our Twitter account so you can keep up with that. So with that, thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Nice.
Nailed it.
Woo! Good job.
Nailed it, guys.
Good job, everyone.
You killed it.
God, you're all beautiful, all of you.
You have the back after the short break text in the
I know,
ending.
I forgot. Now we're live again on
Womp,
YouTube.
womp, womp.
Now we're live.
All right. I gotta go, guys.
Yeah.
Really quick now.
That was
But-
good,
I
though.
as-
We
I as
cut
well.
it. I think we did 45-minute on each segment pretty well.
Nice.
So that
So,
should be good. 90-minute, 100-minute max.
If you get that audio up, I'll do it after work tomorrow.
Oh,
Sounds
wait, we're
good.
live again. Fancy.
Yeah.
Hey. Thanks for
Alright.
watching, anybody who watched on YouTube. We appreciate it.
Have a good one.
We'll see y'all later.